Okay. Hi, I'm Katie Jacob, and I'm with the Preservation Foundation of Palm Beach, and we're very excited to, do a digital version and a bit of a teaser for a lecture we were supposed to have in March. I'm here today with Hunt Slonem. So, Hunt, we're very excited for you to join us digitally from your studio.
Thank you. I'm happy to do it. And sorry we couldn't have done this in person, but these are difficult times, and at least we're able to do this.
I know, I think it's great. So, since we're doing kind of a question and answer, I think this is a great time for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can do your own introduction.
Okay, well, my name's Hunt Slonem. I'm a painter. I've lived in New York since 1973. I moved here after I graduated from Tulane University, and I went to the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture in Maine, where I was born in Maine. I've lived and worked here since '73, and I now divide my time between New York and Louisiana, where I have three old plantation homes, one of which is called Maidwood. The other two are Albania and Lakeside. They're all very historic and important architecturally, and I've kind of saved them. I also have done that up here. I have a house called Belterre that was built by Mr. McLean. Delaware County, I have the Courts Mansion in Kingston, which was built by the brick manufacturer, Mr. John Courts. His son became a senator. And then I have an armory in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Charles Sumner Woolworth's house. So I'm both a painter and a saver of historic properties as my passion, and it's entered into my art form in that I do installation projects based on what I do with the interiors of these homes that needed great help. And
So,
I'm a collector of furniture and old paintings and old Paris and all kinds of great things.
that's wonderful. So, you have a total of 7 historic homes then.
I do, yes, currently. I have 2 more projects I would really like to do, but I'm not able to yet.
Okay. Are those secretly under wraps?
No, well, anyway, I won't tell you yet. It's secretly under wraps.
Um, so, what is currently your favorite painting or of
Oh,
yours or another's?
that's a rough question. I always answer that the one I'm working on today, because that's the one I'm the most involved with. There are many books on my work. The Worlds of Hunt Slonem, An Art Rich and Strange, Pleasure Palaces. I don't know, there's about 10 different books out, which is a better way to survey what I've done and the changes that have occurred in my work over the years. I have primarily worked with nature or spirituality or both in my work since the beginning. Currently, my rabbit paintings are kind of taking off in a big way, and I'm even doing glass sculptures of them. Here's an example. I don't know if you can see me.
Oh yeah, can you hold it up a little bit more? Oh, that's wonderful.
And I'm also doing giant outdoor sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
I make these in Seattle. They're hand blown. And we have a products line also. And I've been making masks. Do you have one of our bunny masks? Can I hold it up? And all kinds of tabletop things. Here's an example of a bunny, framed bunny mask. I don't know if you can see
Very
it.
appropriate for the time.
Yes. Oh, and here's a bowl with the rabbit motif.
Oh wow. So as you are working with all these different materials, you work.
I do wallpaper and fabric, sorry, also.
And so as you're working from painting to sculpture to furniture, you know, to clothes, to mass items, and then you have historic houses as well.
Yes.
How does your creative process differ when you're working in these different environments or with these different materials?
Well, let me say most importantly, I paint every day. I have painted since I was a little kid. That's all I ever wanted to do. I was so fortunate. I mean, my brother had like 15 different talents and became a writer, but I left nothing behind. I just wanted to paint. My grandfather painted, and I grew up around his paintings when he would send them to us. And I grew up in a military family. My dad was in submarines. And I didn't really have an affinity for what he did. And I just kind of drifted off in my own world. And I also am very interested in horticulture. I've raised orchids since I was a little kid in Hawaii. We moved a lot. And I've kept birds. I have about 60 pet birds as well, one of whom is about 80. I've had him for 45 years.
Oh, wow.
But that's something you have to plan ahead for, um, where your birds will wind up should anything happen. And we've had some really tight situations when we had Sandy. We were supposed to evacuate, and I refused because I needed to take care of the birds. And now I've had the same bird keeper for 36 years, and they have been driving in every day during the pandemic, which is just absolutely stupendous. It's about a 5-hour job to take care of them every day. So birds and nature have lived with me. I collected, but everything I paint, I've lived with, owned, observed. My grandfather used to send me cocoons of giant moths when I was a child, and I'd come home from school and there would be Luna moths flying around in my room. Cecropias and Polyphemus. Most people don't even know what they are because there's so few of them around. But nature is getting a second chance with the slowing down of
Mm-hmm.
our society right now. In fact, a friend of mine just sent me a video of a cecropia moth that she found a cocoon of in the woods and it hatched in her house. And I haven't seen one since I was a child, which was quite a while ago.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, all this has inspired my work tremendously. I've had monkeys as pets in the 80s, and I keep turtles and fish. So it all enters my work. It sort of glued itself together in the beginnings through paintings I did of saints, Hindu and Christian saints. Some of them were very large, up to 25, 30 feet. And I put animals around the saints, and that's how it started. And then I did a few shows in the 80s where I left the human figure out and just did things like All About Eden as a show title and Paradise Elsewhere. And the animal forms took on more of a spiritual, literal meaning in the work. So I didn't need the human form to express transcendence, which sort of is more believable in the animal form, I think, because there's a um, very clear pattern physically to what happens from the caterpillar to the cocoon to the flight, as in butterflies and moths. Anyway, and then there are all kinds of other things with, I make these marks into the paint with the back of the brush. And it's about the bird, which is the symbol of the soul. I've kept birds as pets since I was a little kid, and they're a huge part of my life. I mean, both as friends and family. They really have huge intelligence factors. Most people don't realize, and they're great to be around as a painter with, not as much interaction with the world as other people might have, although we do have a lot of people working here in a normal time. Now it's particularly keen. But the bird became the symbol of the soul, and the cage became the symbol of the body.
Mm-hmm.
I based it on this Hindu story. And so it's not about captivity, it's about freedom. Anyway, so that's just another little dimensional reference. I do this painting behind me we call, well, this is birds and guardians and their monkey eyes. And that's about the eye of Hanuman, the monkey god in the Hindu religion. And he was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and Shiva asked him to get a flower or a plant from a mountain, and he couldn't figure it out. So he brought the whole mountain, and that was a sign of his enormous devotion. So I've mixed these eyes. It looks like just a pattern, but they're really monkey eyes with the birds. And I call them guardians often. Anyway, so I liked, people ask me what my favorite artists were or are, and I'm very influenced by artist studios. Picasso was my biggest hero because he had so many chateaus that he filled up, and it was, very, very exciting to me as a child to see these great stately architectural wonders being filled with a living artist's work. And then he'd move on to the next one. And that's my pattern. Every time I run out of space, I seem to expand by another 100,000 square feet. And I fill them all up, and it's great. And it's beyond me how I do it sometimes. In the armory is like,
Yeah, where do you find your collections for these homes? And
well, I used to go to the flea market all the time, but it's now closed.
mm-hmm.
Not because of this, it just closed on its own. I've been going there since the 70s. It's very sad. And there were lots of us that went there since the 70s, and there were just treasures that would show up. But auctions, pickers, all kinds of people bring things to my attention. I'm on an aquarium kick right now. I've just collected 9 19th century cast iron aquariums that are octagonal and had a fountain dimension to them. And we fix them all up and have them full of fish now at Belterre. My house is way up north. I have no trouble finding things. They seem to find me. My first stop off the plane in New Orleans is a place called Renaissance, where I have found endless house fillers that are
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. Anyway, there's always a way. I don't even have to look. The phone just pulls it up. And then I do these installations. I have a show right now at the Roanoke Museum and the Taubman Museum in Roanoke called Huntopia, where we've mixed the furniture and my fabrics and wallpapers and tributes to Lincoln with 100 candles, indicating kind of a seance-like feeling. And I borrowed from their collection, like the Warhol show Raid the Refrigerator was my inspiration for that, and painted the walls colors, and then hung my work. And it's been a great project, and it took several years to make it happen. Anyway, so that's kind of where the studio and house artistic progress shows itself in my work.
And do you prefer to showcase your artwork in terms of an overall collection altogether rather than just a single piece of artwork up on a wall?
They can both be great. I don't have a preference. I mean, when you isolate one of my little rabbit paintings, which I put in 19th century frames, it can sometimes shock me at how strong they can look. It's a single piece rather than a wall of 100 of them. I mean, they're both great. It's a different impact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a preference. It's more like just whatever the experience is. I paint them singly. I don't paint them as a wall. But I also like doing very large scale works. I did a 80-foot mural for the Bryant Park Grill years ago. It's still there. Brendan Gill wrote an article at the time called Miracle on 42nd Street. Talked about the whole situation and interviewed me about the mural. It was my bird pieces, and I did a whole room at the Hamilton in DC, and I had a 86-foot mural at the World Trade Center, which I did under the Cultural Council Foundation Artist Project. And that was a first, a very large scale project. So those are my preferred forms. I've done many paintings that are 50 to 100 feet. When I had my show, Museum of Modern Art in Moscow, we showed a lot of the 50-foot bird paintings. It was great. I don't get that many opportunities to show work on that scale.
Yes, and have you done any more public murals as well?
I have done many others, or done whole rooms. I did Playscape at the Indianapolis Children's Museum. They used 110 of my works. I did the Performing Arts Center in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. They hung a whole show. I did of Bayou paintings for the Hilliard Museum in Lafayette. There's a federal building that I did in Louisiana as well. Not huge paintings, but huge amounts of my work engulfing the whole building. And then I'm doing something at the Children's Museum in Roanoke with a large number of works as well.
So, as an incredibly prolific artist, you also have like a repetition about your work and your subjects. Do you find a clarity in your subjects' work when you paint them a lot? Do you kind of feel a better connection towards those subjects after you've painted them a bunch of times? Or do you feel like each time you paint them, you learn more about them? Have you ever gotten tired of a subject after painting them a bunch of times and you're going to retire that subject? Or do you continue to paint them?
It's a lot of questions in one, but I'll try to answer them. First of all, repetition is an okay art form, kind of found its roots in pop art. Ancient cave painting, to paint something was to own it, metaphysically. I think they would paint the hunt with a successful outcome. I feel after spending time in India at ashrams that, you say mantras, like, you do a rosary or whatever. And so you're repeating a divine name over and over again, which makes you closer to it. And so I think that repetition is kind of a holy endeavor. Not kind of, I feel that it is a holy endeavor, and I feel that it's a beautiful thing. It's the way the whole world is made up, like blades of grass, snowflakes, leaves on trees. You don't think about, and they're never identical, so repetition isn't stamping out a cookie cutter of the same thing. Like my rabbits, which are taking form now, every one of them is unique and made individually and hand shaped, but they look similar. Anyway, so my point is that I think that repeating things is a way of embracing the essence of the subject matter, particularly a natural one. They say if you repeat, the face of a saint over and over again, you become closer to it. You imbibe the essence of the spiritual nature of the being. So I think it's a wonderfully positive endeavor, and not, it used to be kind of a dirty word, repetition, and to repeat oneself is considered a mental flaw rather than, it can be, but it also can be a useful tool. So I'm all for it. The soup can and S&H green stamps, to name a few, pop icon works has inspired me to repeat the finch over and over again, or the rabbit. And I just think it's, you know, an uplifting experience. What was the rest of your question?
Um, does it provide a clarity towards your subjects? Do you find yourself almost closer to them? You mentioned, you recognize
Absolutely.
a bird. So when
Yeah.
you're repainting them over and over again, do you feel
Well,
a closer connection to that?
often they're varied. You know, I might take a type of bird and do 50 varieties of it on a canvas. Once in a while, I will do rabbits over and over again on one surface, or butterflies particularly, which then take on other meanings, like they're stars in the sky, and I call them ascension. Um, so absolutely, I just think you imbibe it. You know, you just really take it in, and I never get tired of it. I might stop doing it for a while. Like during the pandemic, I've been redoing not redoing, but revisiting my earlier ocelot paintings. I'd been an exchange student in Nicaragua when I was 16, and they gave me an ocelot skin for my 16th birthday, and I've done quite a few paintings over the years of ocelots. I love the motif of the cat, wild cat pattern. Looks like a leopard, are almost indistinguishable. So I did about 10 paintings of ocelots, which they're so labor intensive that I've really been too schizo to revisit them, because each one takes such a long time to put together. But my focus has been a lot better without all the interruptions of my normal life and constant travel. Um, I had about 5 shows that were canceled during this time, and we're doing virtual ones in many instances. The next one coming up is supposed to, well, it's in Santa Fe at Turner Carroll Gallery, and then I have a show coming up at the Rothko Museum in Latvia, the 2 national galleries of Latvia.
Yeah. So besides canceled travel, how has, the pandemic changed your day-to-day life at the studio?
Well, I've been staying here, kind of afraid to go back and forth
Of course.
for a lot of reasons. And it's really the way I prefer to live. I don't really want to, because there aren't as many people here, we're all much calmer, and I'm finding I can do things that I wouldn't have had to do before, and I'm learning how to prepare certain things that I haven't had to for many years. It's not that I couldn't, but I had people that were helping me prepare things. I just like it. I don't, to not have to go out to some event every evening is a great relief. I mean, it takes about an hour and a half from where my studio is to get back into Manhattan. To get here is not so bad. But I've reached a point where it's been quite a while, and I'm gonna, break it up a little more. But I do go away on the weekends to my homes, and that's just saved my life. And the air is so great, and such an immersion. And we've had lots of snow flurries lately, which has been kind of amusing.
That is. It seems a little late for snow flurries, but as a Floridian, I wouldn't really know.
You screw about these things.
So one of the projects we were going to focus on a little bit for your lecture in March was, your kind of redesign of the Scranton Armory. So can you tell us a little more of why you took that project on?
It kind of took me on. I never say that I pick places, they pick me. I was, when Bloomberg signed Hudson Yards okay. My building was sold on 34th and 10th that I was renting and had been there for 4 or 5 years. I probably could have been there for 20. And they sold the building for an amount of money that's just staggering. And so I had to leave, and I had a month, and they gave us some money. And we didn't have a choice. And the only thing I found was this great studio in Brooklyn, and it is about 30,000 square feet with views that are just spectacular. And my jaw kind of dropped when I saw it. But I never really wanted to leave Manhattan, but I really could not find anything big enough at that time. And I had till July, a very short window of time in which to move. And it went very slowly. I had to put in bathrooms and lighting and you name it. And it looked like it wasn't going to make it. And I heard about this armory, and we worked out a deal, and I moved about 500 trucks of my antiques there and painted all the rooms, and was able to expand. I mean, it's a whole city block. It's like the Park Avenue Armory, and it has a huge history. Even Rachmaninoff played in the Armory. My psychic, who's from Scranton, went there as a child. Kennedy and 5 other American presidents spoke there. So it has this huge historic background. It may have been part of the Underground Railroad. There's tunnels under it. Very mystical. It was also very haunted. And I had to bring in Ghostbusters to make it bearable for us to be there. It wasn't scary. It was just really in your face. We all saw ghosts. We saw things flying around. I'd call my Ghostbusters and say, we just got a video from one of the movers who saw this big green orb fly from his truck into the building. And it seemed to have a little smiley face component. And I said, what was it? She goes, oh, that's an intergalactic being. They're harmless. So all kinds of strange phenomena occurred there. And now it's wonderful. She went into silence for a week or something and changed the energy. We have to have little touch-ups every so often. But the main room is 50,000 square feet with 40-foot ceilings. And the front of the building was each room is different, and there are marble plaques with names on them, and I've kept it all and integrated it. And some of it was quite fancy in its day. Some of the early electric lighting was put in there. There friezes of Hannibal crossing the Alps, and when I have 7 dining rooms in the building. So I've just, I went wild with stuff. I could get huge things that nobody else in the world could possibly want or house. And I have just dozens and dozens of Gothic cases and old paintings, and it's just really fantastic. It looks like an English country, has incredible staircases, and there's a room for everything. It's just amazing. It was quite a project, but it just took me over. I just went into a trance. I don't know how we got it together, but every fluorescent light became a chandelier that I found somewhere, and they're all old, good ones. It's not nothing's new that I did. So it's been just an incredible experience to put that together. And then I saw this house as I was coming into town that blew my mind, and it turned out to be Charles Sumner Woolworth's house, and they opened Woolworth's on my birthday, July 18th, in 1870 or something. And I thought, well, that's a sign. Anyway, it had been abandoned for 18 years, and I bought it, and took almost 5 years to put that together, and a lot of metaphysical reconfiguring on that one. It was all gridded to Mr. Woolworth, and that's why nobody else could touch it. And the grid had to be had to be changed to allow another being to take it over. Anyway, it's just magnificent. It's like a little Newport mansion or something. So that's been a lot of fun, but it was hard. I just sort of phase out the horrible parts of all of this, but the end result is quite wonderful.
So it seems like not only do you take on the physical aspects of restoring these homes, you're really bringing them back to life in a spiritual way as well.
I'm infusing them with new life, yes, and some of the earlier purposes of their creation weren't always so wonderful, especially the armory. But it's a wonderful building. It's wonderful architectural. I don't know when I'll ever have an amount of space like that again. I was able to save all my early works had been rolled up for 30 years, and we were able to restretch them and have the space to do it and hang them. And the museum, the Everhart gave a show of my work, of my early Inca gold works, which hadn't seen the light of the day since the 70s. And so it was a revisiting of what I'd been up to forever. I found paintings I thought I'd lost 25 years ago. It served a wonderful function in my creative process to revisit the origins of where I am now and, really taking it all in and mix it with other things.
What's the timeline? What is the timeline of that project?
It's done.
Well, you saw the build. How long did it take you to, fill that building and bring it
About
back?
3 years.
3 years.
About 3 years, I think. Yeah, it went pretty fast.
That
I mean, it was just a whirlwind. I mean, I couldn't even stay there. There was dust flying like crazy. And there are beds there. I stayed there. I have 3 or 4 bedrooms. We opened it up for the Historical Society and let them handle that. It's hard when you have fragile things to let lots of people come in, but we've got dinner parties for the museum and tours for different groups. I don't know what's going to happen with it in the future. I've never let go of anything so far. So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what the future holds.
Right. Hopefully.
So as you're in your studio daily now, would you be interested in giving us a tour and showing us some of your current works that you're working on?
I think I'm going to let somebody else do that because I'm not so good at holding the camera. And you can just have an overview of the whole place. It's really big. And I think that Allison, who I work with, will do that for you. I'll just answer questions.
Yes, that would be cool.
Do you have more specific things that I can talk to you about?
I think we're really excited, you're able to do this, and we hopefully look forward to having you in Palm Beach in the future.
I love coming to Palm Beach. I was so disappointed. We had lots of plans surrounding your event. So not hopefully, we have to know that it will happen in the near future. I think Palm Beach is the most manicured place on earth. It's just a thrill to see that in action.
It really is. But, at the foundation, we have a beautiful native botanical garden called Pan's Garden that I hope, when you're here, you're able to see and visit and provide inspiration.
Fantastic. Art making is the fiber that keeps me alive. I do it every day. And I don't, the wonderful thing about artists is there's no such thing as retirement. I mean, so I hope I live to 140 and can do this forever. and save lots more houses. I would kind of like to leave them all so that they could be study centers or visitable in some way. It's so, these houses, there's not really great support for this in this country. And I did none of this for profit, believe me. And it's just purely passion and love of architecture. Like Maidwood Plantation is Henry Howard's masterpiece. And I studied it in college at Tulane. And I always wanted to own it. And my psychic kept saying, quit asking me, it's yours, you're getting it. And somebody else saw me waving from the front porch. That was like 30 years ago. I wasn't convinced, but it did eventually happen 3 years ago. Anyway, I have two other very lofty things that I'd love to save next. But also, I need to really figure out how to keep this all together. I've watched so many friends who had phenomenal collections have them just go up for auction at the end of their life, and they can't be reproduced. I mean, they can't be regathered. It's just, these things are too rare at this point. I'm not saying that my collections are the greatest in the world, but they're interesting. And so that's the next phase of the last quarter of my life will be to figure out what to do with it all and how to try to save it. And you don't want it to be too public. That's the other part, because these places are so fragile, you know.
They are. It's definitely, to be a steward of a historic home can be a really magical thing. And it takes a lot of energy and effort, to take care of them. So
That part doesn't bother me. It's the wear and tear of big groups coming. You know, I've had lots of charity things over the years, and the old furniture is brittle, dries. Anyway, there's lots of downsides to the old architecture. You know, there's always a pipe bursting or a leak in the roof or something. Anyway, but I enjoy it a lot. I really do. I just love it. And there are a few people that have large numbers of houses that they've saved, but not that many. And there's really no support for it. You know, it's just something you want to and love to do. And I'm blessed that my painting has enabled me to take on a few things. Long may it last.
yes. Have you noticed, when you're taking care of these homes, that you're able to find the craftspeople to, preserve them?
Always. At what price is the
The
biggest?
question.
Yes, it can be a slow process, especially in very remote areas that most of my places are in. And then in those places, these people are in such demand that it can take years to get things done. We laugh about that, but yes, the answer is yes. There are always people that can do these things. It's just a question of finding the right one, and that can be quite a lengthy process. I mean,
So
people are so skilled. It's just amazing. I mean, I have people that can recarve things that you can't even tell what's been repaired. So I'm blown away by the level of craftsmanship that I encounter. Not every day, but frequently.
well, before we start the tour, do you have anything else you would like to share, about the homes you have saved or, your artwork?
Well, it's a wedding, you know. It's my artwork looks great in the homes. I think I like living with it there. I'm always trying to uplift the vibration of the homes. They have a lot of history, good and bad. Some have been used as hospitals at different times in history. you know, so you're constantly trying to up the vibration, and you can do that. That's where color is a great tool, and fabrics and plants. I'm a real plantaholic. We always have a conservatory every few feet. The Woolworth's House has a particularly beautiful one. We're turning a picnic pavilion at Belterre into a greenhouse now, which is going to be quite large and very exciting. And, you know, reclaiming gardens, the ones where often the properties get a little chopped up. I mean, originally they were all huge amounts of land, but over the years, you know. But anyway, several of them still have plenty, and it's terrific. And we have historic records of what the things looked like, you know, for at least 100 years and sometimes before. Um, anyway, it's just an endlessly satisfying endeavor, and I personally love it. And I kind of patch my way through it through flowers and wall colors and draperies. That makes such a difference, finding the right fabrics. They have some great people in Louisiana, particularly. Um, the transformation is just unbelievable. It's nothing short of a miracle that happens. And I don't overdo it. I'm not an over restorer. I like the patina. I have rooms that haven't been painted for 100 years that I'll never touch. Not everywhere, but in a few spots. Anyway, enough said. Let's look at this space, which is not a historic property. It's just my studio.
Wonderful.
Okay, away we go.
Corridor. Let me know at any point if it's like blurry or if I'm moving too fast. So this is his guardians and the butterflies. It's like nice detail, so much texture. And then I just love the yellow walls and the bright paintings. So Hunt loves.
Hi, how's it going?
Although he's on the phone over there. Okay, so we'll go this way. You've seen the bunny wall, I'm sure.
Yes.
So I'll bring you over here. So this is the always evolving bunny wall. One comes down, one goes up. We have the diamond dust. Some of my favorites are the ovals.
They're really cute.
Yeah. So then, this is what Huntsman spends a lot of time now. We don't have as much help coming in, but this is like 5 years or more of growth. And over here we have like the city, the view of the city, which I think is beautiful, especially with all the green. And the orchid. And then some of these over here are Hunt sculptures. Those are wood and oil. Oh, I must show you some of the larger sculptures, which I think you might have seen these. You post them on Instagram once in a while. But I'm just in love with them.
Those are great.
Yeah.
So how big is this space?
It's about 30,000 square feet, I want to say. And it's all broken down, like you saw the main corridor. And then there's all different rooms that have, you know, like something new that he's been working on. I've noticed, I've seen a lot, is the water lilies, which I love them with the cross hatching. So we'll go back over here. One area that I think is so interesting that you can see is how paintings get shot. Of some of these. This is my favorite. Like, I just love the butterflies. Like, I think you should have a butterfly wall. So this is a drying room. So all these are wet right now. And they're in the middle of getting shot and skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just, what Hunt also works on, this is one of my favorite ones. It's resin and gold flake, oil. I don't know, there's just something about this one. It always talks to me.
It almost looks like marble.
Huh?
It said it almost, you know, looks like a marble type of sculpture.
Yeah, it does. I think it's the speckle. But then we'll walk back, maybe see if Perky's hanging out. So he mentioned before the ocelots that he's been working on, and here's a few.
So when the studio was the studio open to the public before, if people were interested in coming?
So yeah, there was people that would come in, collectors and clients, and you know, we've had some film crew. At one point, Alice and Olivia had done a fall. I forget what year it was, but they did a fall photo shoot, and here I can send them to you. Actually, it's quite fabulous. We just finished and they're drying. So this is where it all happens. Anyway, is there anywhere else that you would like to see?
No, I think this is great.